All right. Just record it, Brian, and people have to...
Yeah, well, this is, if it doesn't go live now, I'll set it to record as well. So settings to record now, and we're good.
Okay, welcome everyone. It's really... Continue.
Recording and streaming.
Oh, it is streaming. Perfect. Okay, fantastic. Just gonna... All right. Welcome everyone. This is really, really great to have you all join us for another extraordinary YJP workshop. And we're here to engage, we're here to involve, we're here to inspire. And it's really, really wonderful to have you all here with us. Tonight we've got Alice in Frames. Now, for some of you might know Alice in many different ways, but Alice, for those who don't know, was actually on one of our first think tanks for YJP. And so on top of being a master chef, on top of being an author, on top of being a radio host, a TV host, just a great, great person. Alice is a proud mum and proud wife and just a wonderful, wonderful person. And her greatest claim to fame is being on the YJP launch video. But not only that, actually a couple of years ago, Alice and I hosted together Challah Bake, and Alice was there well and truly the life of the party. So without any further ado, we're going to have a wonderful discussion, getting into some good, deep questions, you know, new trends, what's happening in the foodie world, and many other things. So please let's welcome Alice. And Alice, it's great to have you.
Hey, thank you, Moshe. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. Really, really wonderful to have you back. So I want to start, Alice. You know, on one hand, you're Alice's famous, you know, TV star, started off a Masterchef, you know, author now, ready your second book, you're on TV consistently, you're on the radio, you're just someone that's out there. But I want to get to know the Alice, before we get to know the famous Alice, I want to get to know the young Yavna girl, Alice, your early years, and then tell us, you know, how you progressed from being a great girl living in the hood, having the party life over here, to all of a sudden finding yourself on TV, how that came about.
Yeah, well, I'll start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land from which I'm zooming in to you from, Moishi, the Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And bring attention to something very important. You said that I, you know, got my started out on MasterChef, but you're right. You know, I started out very much a Yavna girl, and I still am, you know, very much at heart a Yavna girl, and I still keep in contact with quite a few of my classmates and other sort of schoolmates. It's a very small school, so it kind of doesn't matter if there's a 10-year gap. We all kind of are a little fam. And it's a pretty broad question, so I'll figure out which aspect of it to answer. And I'll actually, for those that are zooming in that knew me when I was at school, there's one particular moment when I was, we were rehearsing for the year 9. So I was in year 9. It was the big musical, all the secondary school musical. And the whole school was rehearsing, and the choreographer, Debbie, stopped the rehearsal and said, "This is not the Alice show." And that was, I'm not tearing up at that, it's hay fever, but that was certainly a moment that people still remind me of. You know, the last person was Sam Bruce, a few years below me, got in touch, I think, when I first started News Breakfast, and said, I still remember that time, you know. And so I think that always I was a big fan of entertaining people, a big fan of connecting with people, and I loved being on stage. So that's kind of what I do. But these days, the stage doesn't just mean live. It means the screen, it means the radio. So, you know, talking about channels and platforms, that's totally, yeah, what I do.
Amazing. And I want to know, just because I'm curious, and I'm sure many people are, and I know this will...
Turn out that light. I'm still here, Moishi. I'm just turning that light off. Hopefully it stops my eye watering. Classic. We're doing it live. All right, here we go.
Live. Amazing. So
All right.
I want to know is, how does MasterChef work? Tell us about that story, how you got into MasterChef. And then I want to know how that actually works in terms of, do you have to live somewhere for a couple of months while they're filming? What happens? How it all goes down?
Okay, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to find a tissue. So suspend your disbelief. I'm still here and you can still hear me. So just stand by for a moment and I'll tell you all about Masterchef while I find a tissue for my eyeball. So the way that it works is imagine going back to school, but this time you're competing with all of your classmates, and not just for the NAPLAN and not just for VCE, but for, you know, our year it was 100 grand, other years it's 250 grand. So it's a lot of money at stake, and it's not just money, it's cachet, you know, for a lot of people when they, how was that? Was that seamless? I thought that was pretty good. Great. So, for a lot of people,
this is pre-recorded.
So for a lot of people, the MasterChef dream is to win, and it's to have a media career, or to become a chef. There's a real kind of final destination that people aspire to. Whereas when I went on the show, I kind of saw it more like a university degree. So for me, it was an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to meet interesting new people. And I kind of didn't mind when I finished up. And I just so happened to finish up just before finals week. So for me, you know, I left just before the exams at uni. So I was happy. I was really happy. And the experience, because it's viewed, my year, I think there were over 2 million people that tuned into the finale. So because it's viewed so prolifically, it has an impact. And since then, I've gone on to host TV shows, to write books, to be food editor of a lifestyle glossy here in Melbourne, and basically do all of the things that you see other people in the food media doing and think, how do they get there? The answer is bit of dumb luck, a shed load of long hours, hard work, and chutzpah. A good dose of chutzpah, that's for sure. You know, there have been so many opportunities that I've just kind of thought, well, why not me? And I've just gone for it.
I love that. So where do you get the chutzpah from? So is that something you learn?
Where do we all get the chutzpah from? It's in our blood. You know, I can't think of anyone that's not a chutzpah dick in our community. There's always, you know, so I'm trying to think who it is that described chutzpah as someone peeing in your mailbox and then knocking on the door and telling you that you did, or something like that. But, you know, I think about all of the people, particularly Jewish kind of comedians and entertainers, Jewish public figures, and there is always that element of chutzpah that is drawing for them, that's kind of like powering us forward, right? I say them, I say us, you know, because for my book, for example, for In Praise of Veg, it's got over 60 of the world's most interesting to me chefs. And in order to get those chefs' quotes, I genuinely just had to email them, you know, get in touch with them and plead my case. And it was actually another Jewish food writer, Danny Valent, who I spoke to. And I said, you know, Danny, I'm nervous. You know, I'm emailing Dan Barber. I'm emailing Jose Andres. Like, these are chefs with multiple Michelin stars, with incredible international reputations. Who am I? You know, who's this little pisher from Melbourne? Like, are they just going to say no? And she said, well, yeah, maybe they'll say no, but who cares? Just ask someone else. So I think that kind of level of not caring so much, and you know, the number of doors that you knock on, someone's bound to say yes. And I was very grateful to get very few no's too.
You know, I love what you're saying, Alice, because we're going to be talking about your book, and we're going to be talking about food, and we're going to be talking about what you're doing on TV now. But I love, just because we're talking to a YGP crowd, I love the concept of having tenacity to just go out there and pursue something that you really want. And I once heard a saying, you miss 100% of the chances you don't take. And so how do you deal with rejection? How do you deal? I'm sure if you got, you know, X amount, how many co-authors did you able to get? How many quotes were you able to get?
So over 60, and honestly, I actually could have gotten more. It's just that we only had that many entries that I could fit a quote on. So
did you get a Gordon Ramsay quote?
I didn't, but I didn't ask Gordon. I stuck to the people that I have had personal kind of interactions with, because I felt like they were easy marks. And Gordon's not someone that I've spent time with. So yeah, that's fine. He can be the next one. Yeah, absolutely. Totally. And I think, you know, Gordon's someone who's got a TV persona and a chef persona, and, you know, he trained with the best. So, and has trained many of the best. So, yeah.
So tell me, how do you deal with rejection? Because I know there's been a lot of successes in your life, but I'm sure to every door that was open, there was possibly a door that was closed.
Yeah, there have definitely been disappointments in my career, and some of them have been really disappointing. You know, opportunities that I totally thought were mine went to people that I was just like, huh? But here's the thing, if they didn't come to me, they were not for me. And often, you know, I might see that opportunity grow or fester in a way that I then recognize that that was not for me. So I think that, you know, RuPaul said it best, that if you go to an audition or if you try out for any opportunity, be your whole self, because no one can be that. If you try to be what you think they want, then that's kind of half the people there are going to try to be what somebody wants them to be. And in a way, we just become this kind of tulpa, this, you know, version, this homogenous version that we see on, you know, travel television or YouTube, and it's not authentic and it's not exciting to watch. So the more that I'm myself and the more that I'm true to what I want, both on camera, in my writing, you know, even the tone of my writing, I think, has changed. And the more that I write and the more kind of direction that I get from editors, the more that I realize that all they really want from me is just like my stream of consciousness. They don't want me to be this la-di-da. They just want to, you know, read Alice on the page. So definitely, like, there've been rejections, and I'm not going to say that I'm always this zen kind of, oh well, what will be will be. I've spent my fair share of time just like this, and thankfully I've got a great support network around me that first say huh with me, and then we kind of talk through it and work through it, and eventually we get over it.
Amazing, love it.
Yeah.
Don't ever give up, keep going, do your who, and then
yeah, like, don't deny if you're disappointed or if you felt a rejection. Don't deny those emotions, because they will fuel you forward. Like, there have been opportunities again, and there have been situations where people have looked over me. Was that the word? Overlooked me. That's the one. My migrant English, it's late. I had morning breakfast television this morning, Moishi. This is a long day and I'm loving it. So
I'm glad that it's only evolving, by the way. You started off with TV and now you're going to YJP.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, it's great. So I'm still Jenny from the block. So the answer is that, what was I saying? I was saying, yes, when I have felt overlooked and when I have felt like, you know, why isn't this happening for me? And, you know, there's that frustration. That frustration comes through in the way that I interact with the world. And that is not a place of abundance. That is a place of deficit, and it's a place of defensiveness. And in my experience, when I'm generous with my time, when I'm hearty in my approbation and my praise of others as well, then there's a lot more flow to what happens, and a lot more opportunities present themselves as well.
I want to ask you something that you made reference to, but I'll sort of quote you. You said that Gordon Ramsay has a great TV presence, but also a great chef. And I'll tell you why I mention that, because one of the things, you are obviously a great chef, wonderful chef, and you've got a wonderful TV presence, and you're great personality. You're out there, you're warm, you're easy to connect to. And I'm just wondering, how do you balance those two different worlds in terms of, you know, if you like, I'm going to use the business side of your world, which is clearly, you know, part of what you do. You've got, you know, you have to author books, you've got to promote yourself, you've got to do this whole one aspect, but then equally you just want to be the good, authentic chef. You want to be that person that connects. And I think people struggle in life to, you know, people who have got a very successful business, how do they market that business? It's not what they do. Do you have a team around you, or what key tips can you tell us around that?
Well, firstly, I should qualify that I'm very much not a chef. I would definitely call myself a home cook. And from that place, I can still be very warm and very kind of not the expert. I'm much more comfortable absorbing the expert opinions and translating them to the general populace. So that's why I can very comfortably say, never am I a chef. In America, actually, in America, if you cook, you're a chef. So I'm comfortable with that media kind of saying, oh, Alice Zaslavsky is a chef. And I'm like, yeah, cool. But here they get very protective. So I am a home cook. But in terms of balancing my different personas and the kind of the dynamic, it's interesting when I walk into one room compared to another, how context can change somebody's perception of your value and your worth. I was listening to a podcast about it with Sam Harris, actually, talking about the fact that our identity should not be defined by how other people see us, because if that's the way that we always kind of perceive ourselves, then that's fraught. Because some days you are the king and other days you're the pauper. And if you let other people kind of put those perceptions onto you, then it's a real roller coaster that you don't need to ride. And I say all of this advice, like I need to remind myself of this all the time too, but I think it's been really interesting to me walking into a room as the keynote speaker versus walking into that same room as just a delegate with my sticker on with my name on it, and not really kind of, because I don't have necessarily a tangible kind of business that I can say under my name what my business is. People just don't really have a context for me, and so they often will undervalue or sort of underestimate my input into that room. But I don't really care. Like, I actually think that if somebody is willing to give me their time when I'm just that sticker person, then I'm going to give them exactly what I would if I was the keynote speaker. If they're only going to, give me the sycophantic kind of like, oh, I'm such a fan vibe, if they know that I'm on the program, then that's not really the sort of person that I want to interact with. And that's something I hope that, everybody can kind of take away within their own businesses, is that it's about how you treat people, regardless of whether you know what level they're at in that business that you're trying to procure, or, when you're in a room, actually, when you're at a networking event, tap in and see who's vibrating at your frequency. It doesn't matter what their name tag says or what position they're, whatever that sticker says, actually doesn't matter. Just find the person that you connect with and have a conversation, and you'll probably find that the network that they bring to you and the experience that they bring at that event and beyond will probably be more worthwhile than if you just speak to some board CEO. In terms of how I balance my business dealings and whether I have had interesting experiences there. So one thing that I have had the opportunity to do is create Phenomenon, which is a food literacy digital toolkit, and that was funded by government and industry. And at its peak, we had over 60 people working on it, and I was the top of the tree and still am. And that was really an interesting experience for me, because I think by nature I'm a people pleaser. It doesn't matter what again, all the advice that I can give to others, I still would worry a lot more when I started about what people thought of me. So I was always bringing people coffee on set, or, kind of trying to help. But in so doing, I think sometimes I lost a bit of hand. So I've learned over the years that actually, don't make things your problem if they're not your problem. There's probably other people that can do that sort of stuff, and worry about what it is that you need to do if you're the puppeteer at the top. I would describe my leadership style as very collaborative, but I also have very clear vision. So if you start out with a clear vision and then you're willing to hire people who are at the top of their game and really kind of excited about what it is that they do, then you can be pretty hands off. You can say, like, this is my vision. Now go be free, be creative. And in my experience, that's been the best way to work. I think if you're too defensive and protective about what you're trying to achieve, then often it can stifle people's creativity. And no, I don't have a team. I do my own social media. I answer my own DMs. I spend way too much time on my phone and on my laptop on every screen. I don't know. I don't even look at what my iPhone tells me as far as how many screen hours I do a week. It's embarrassing. I don't need to know it. My husband certainly doesn't need to know it. It's bad. My daughter, we've got a 19-month-old. We don't give her the phone. Like, we don't show her videos or anything like that. But the things that she does is she walks around. If she can find my phone, she'll grab it and she'll plug it in, because that's what she sees me doing, because my battery's always dying. She'll just look for things to plug my phone into, or she'll turn on the camera and she'll walk around with the camera on, trying to snap. I've got weird time lapses of her feet.
Got to get you a pack, battery pack.
Oh, battery pack. Yeah, I need a human battery pack.
You are energizing everyone. So let me ask you, so who is the real Alice? Are you an author? Are you a TV host? Are you a chef? Are you, director of this brand, if you like? Who would you want to be labeled at, or not even labeled? The bad word.
Well, I think that's why I qualified it with, I'm a Yavna girl. I'm still exactly the same person. I've still got exactly the same sense of humour. I still get excited by being on the front page of the Australian Jewish News, like more excited. I was in the same week, I was on the cover of The Age and on the cover of the Jewish News, and I know which one gave my mum more nachas. So I think it doesn't matter what hats we wear, it does still come back to the formative years and who we are. Who we were is very much shapes who we are.
I love it. Couldn't agree with you more. I want to change your topic a bit. And during COVID, one of the hardest hit sector was the hospitality sector, and people in restaurants and whether it doesn't matter if it was even the takeaway place, which I know were open, but they still got severely affected, and the whole industry was really, I've got friends who are caterers that really got hammered. What do you think is the recovery in the food industry going to look like?
I think the recovery is mixed. For some people, COVID was an opportunity to reshuffle and reassess what their business model was. So they actually came out of the experience better off than once they started. For some people who created micro businesses because they weren't able to work their regular hospitality jobs, you look at someone like Avi from Bubka Boy. Avi would never have discovered that people love his Bubka if it weren't for COVID. And if it weren't for everything that went down with lockdown. So I'm very much a glass half full kind of person. And I'd like to think that everybody could try and find, some sort of loophole or some sort of gap. Again, you've got to have some grit and some chutzpah. And I'm really sorry to those people, obviously for the catering industry, it was disastrous. And again, for so many industries, I think the recovery is going to take all of us potentially prioritizing supporting small business, or not just potentially prioritizing small business. I'm the foodie ambassador for Visit Victoria, and part of the Click for Vic campaign was literally just kind of encouraging people to use their trigger finger and click with their mouse and order from small producers, from artisans, and from restaurants that were doing it tough, and we'll continue to, like, in terms of how many people can sit in a restaurant now, it's wild. But then I actually think Melbourne's got a real opportunity to also reshape the way that we appreciate dining. For a long time, we were shopping around to try and find, cheap deals. And I think that delivery services were making a mozza because we were all kind of thinking, well, that's just the way it is. Through COVID, businesses like Providor and Collab Pantry and St. Ali's General Store, all of those businesses cropped up again because of ISO. And they will continue to roll out and to kind of be best practice, I suppose, be examples of things that you can do that other countries and cities are looking to and thinking, that's a really good idea. We've just seen the UK has just gone into lockdown. I'm watching their social media and businesses are cropping up that are very much just a copy paste of businesses like Providor. So Melbourne's got the opportunity to lead the way. We've had 122 days of lockdown. The harshest restrictions some of the harshest restrictions in the world. So if we can show that we can be resilient through this, and that's now it's 18 days, right, of 0 of donuts. So if we can show the world that it is possible to push through this and come out the other end and maintain a sustainable hospitality industry and a sustainable state in all ways, where we're all helping each other and voting with our dollar and trying to support each other within our spheres of influence, then what an amazing, kind of example of tikkun olam, right?
Amazing. So Alice, you had this aspiration of having a food truck. I heard you say it.
God, that's taking me back.
I know, that's the problem. When you say something on TV, it sticks for life. I know. It's like, it just shows you the power of the word. It's there forever.
Yes.
What happened to that dream?
Well, that dream. So I should say the food truck was not like a go to festival, serve kebabs. It was more like a food bus, and it was designed to go around to schools. It was double story. The bottom story would be a kitchen and the top story would be a garden, and it would be encouraging kids to connect with food. And I feel like I've done that. I've just done it in a much more scalable way. Phenomenon, for example, is a series of springboard videos. It's a podcast. It's lesson plans that teachers of every single subject, so maths teachers, art teachers, English teachers, history, geography, all teachers across grade 2 to year 8 can dip into our free toolkit, completely free, and access resources for literacy and numeracy, for skills across the board that they want to teach kids that just so happen to have food as a bit of a hook. So in doing so, I feel like the food bus was a vehicle, right? And Phenomenon is a vehicle. It's just that if I was going school to school on my bus, as fun as it would be, it would take me a really long time to get to those over 10,000 schools in Australia. Whereas with Phenomenon, we're already in over 3,000 schools through ClickView. We're about to be on ABC Education, which is the biggest and most used platform for education in Australia, and all of that's been done in the space of, we started the project in late 2016, early 2017. So I reckon that's pretty cool. The bus lives on.
Pretty cool. Well, do you think there's room for a good kosher food truck?
Nice always. Burgers? Yes.
I mean,
definitely.
How amazing would that be?
That would be so great.
Corner of Carlos Street and Balaclava.
Yes, next to the bouncing guys. Beep, honk, honk for kosher food and Mashiach.
So do you want to go in a partnership and do that?
Done. What would we serve though? What would go
I
off?
reckon pastrami, like a burger with pastrami on top, like
No way, Danelli's Deli would have us for lunch. They would be so annoyed at us. And I think that their burger with pastrami is fantastic. So I think we'll let them do their thing.
Ellie and Daniel are one of my dearest friends, and they are a great deli. Everyone should be going there and buying the best burger in Melbourne, 100%.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Forget those burgers, maybe hot dogs there, but they also sell hot dogs. So
Moishi, I just feel like you are going to stir your friends up into a frenzy. Maybe we could do kosher donuts. No one's really doing, I'm trying to think. Oh God, yeah, no, we're just asking.
Don't go down there. Okay, I think we've quit our business before we started.
Okay.
I'm
glad we workshopped it.
Yes. So were you personally affected, obviously, during COVID?
Yeah, a lot of my work is live on stage in big auditoriums. So, one of my kind of before, when I was 8 months pregnant, my biggest gig was hosting Nigella on stage at Hamer Hall. 2,500 people. That was brilliant.
Oh, wow.
And then the same. So Hazy was pretty young. This time last year, I was at Margaret River hosting chefs at Gourmet Escape. Some of the, Rick Stein was there, and taking me back. Amazing chefs that I was hosting. And so this year was quite different. In March, I got a phone call from New York saying, how would you feel about doing the segments from home? All of my radio I had to do from home, or I've had opportunities come up where, brands or corporates have said to me, can you do some videos for us? But again, from home, we can't send a crew. So we've kitted up. We've got great gear, which you can probably see. We've got some great lights. We've got great audio. Basically, we've got a studio set up at home now, so that if we do need to do something like this, or if I'm doing a corporate cooking demo, not only have I got one camera, Moishi, I can mix. I've got a mixer like a DJ where I can change the shot. There is no way that we would have thought to do something like that if it weren't for the restrictions. And again, it's kind of, two mice fell into a tub of cream. One of the mice started kicking, felt like, oh, this is all just too hard, gave up and drowned. The other mouse started kicking and thought, I'm going to keep kicking, kicked, turned the cream into butter and climbed out of the tub. So you get to choose which mouse you want to be every single day. And I think, this situation for a lot of people has been a real reckoning. It's kind of forced us to look at our lives and look at what priorities we've had and what opportunities might look like if we personally have the time to sit back and go, do I like what I do? Do I enjoy the way that I'm spending most of my time? Am I utilizing all of my skills? Am I spending enough time giving back? What can I do better to live a more sustainable and enriched life? I thought of this time as laying fallow. For so long we've been depleting the soil of our lives, our bodies, our spirits, our souls, because we're just so busy and we're just so focused on keeping up with the Joneses or the Goldbergs. We are so concerned, particularly in this age of social media, with comparing ourselves and our lives to what others have. And all we see are their highlight reels. But we perceive that to be their whole lives and think, well, what else can I do? What else can I do? Whereas this has been like, no, you're grounded. Think about what you've done and think about what you want to do next. So I'm really excited for coming out of lockdown, even just the appreciation that I have for being able to look eye to eye. This morning was the first time that I was back in studio at News Breakfast, and you cannot fake the chemistry, even, share cam, all of the things that we tried to do to create a nice experience for people at home. You can't compare that to sitting and making eye contact with a human being. So I think if there's anything that I've appreciated so much coming out of lockdown, it's that I as a human being get to connect with people if I just look up from my phone. And that's what I'm doing a lot more these days, that's for sure.
I agree, and that's what we need to do. We need to connect with one another, not just virtually but physically. I couldn't agree with you more. So let me ask you something. So I love books, and I see behind you got a wonderful collection. I actually spy, even though I think I'm spying your new book on the top left, just over there in pink and green. Is that your new book?
Yes, it is. That's the one. Shall I bring it forward, Moishi?
Oh, so you made the veggie the hero.
Ta-da! There it is.
By the way, in case anybody's wondering, this was not rehearsed. And are you impressed that I was able to spy that book out of all of your books?
Yeah, because it's thick. It stands out on a shelf like, anyone. That's crazy. I go into bookshops to sign it, and it's pretty easy to find, which is handy.
Good.
Yeah,
that's good. So before we start talking about all your other books on the bookshelf, let's go to this one.
Okay.
Why the veggie? What inspired what happened with that?
I think as far as a family, I think we eat vegetables more and more. This isn't a book. It's not a strictly vegetarian or vegan cookbook at all. There is about probably 20% meat and fish inside, and it reflects the way that we eat as a family, but also the way that more people are eating. I'm not telling people to eat less meat. I'm just telling people to eat more vegetables, and you'll naturally eat less meat. So it's kind of, and even the cuts in it are secondary cuts, and thinking about using smoked fish or kind of reducing our footprint on the planet. So the reason why I chose vegetables, though, is because they're really delicious. And for a really long time, anyone that I would tell how delicious vegetables were would just look at me like I was a little bit crazy. And particularly people of a certain age who grew up with overboiled, under-seasoned vegetables and didn't ever discover the deliciousness of tabbouleh. And, Sephardi food in general, there's so many delicious vegetable dishes. Obviously, tzimmus on the Ashkenazi side, still good. But this is my, what am I going to say? My magnum opus. This is my close to 500-page ode to the world, to Mother Nature's greatest gift, I suppose. The thing about vegetables is that they are our opportunity to connect with nature. There are so many delicious ways to cook vegetables that people have never even discovered, never even thought of doing. And when you do, it's kind of like, not only do you think, oh, this is actually really tasty, it makes you wonder what else you're missing out on. It makes you think, what other preconceived ideas have I had in my life that I need to kind of shift? And particularly for kids, this is obviously, kids are a real passion, and educating kids and helping open their minds to the world is something that is kind of deep within me. My background's in teaching, so it's not hard to know where that comes from. But what I will say to you, particularly, YJP, a lot of you are young parents. what I will say is that there is always going to be that power struggle at a certain age. It's neophobia. You know, kids go through this period where the tastes are really intense, and particularly for new foods, they're kind of like, this is unfamiliar. I don't know what to do. And our reactions, our expectations of what they're going to think of those vegetables really inform the way that they will react as well, and that they will perceive those vegetables. So what I would say is fake it till you make it. Get excited yourself. So role modeling is really important. If you're serving them something, taste it. Make sure it tastes good to you, because if it doesn't taste good to you, it's probably not going to taste good to them. Serve up seasonal vegetables, because that's when they're at their peak and that's when they taste good, but also they're at their cheapest too. So, you know, I think part of the reason why I wanted to write about vegetables is because I'm all about making the kitchen an inclusive, safe place. And vegetables are a really cost-effective place from which to start cooking, because, you know, burning a carrot is much cheaper than burning a chop. And certainly it's not going to break the bank, and you know, burning a carrot's actually pretty delicious too, so it's something to think about. So I kind of feel like this is also subliminally, this is kind of like me saying maybe it's time for us to rebrand vegetables, but also maybe it's time for us to rethink what else we're othering in this world and what else we need to give another chance to.
Wow.
Bit deep there, but
No,
hey,
no,
you asked
no,
the
not
question.
at all. Well, talking about deepness and talking about, you know, so obviously, you know, a chef or a home cook or a master chef home cook, you don't want to label yourself, you know,
Yep.
clearly is driven by a lot of, you know, where you come from, you know, what's the soul food for you? What is it that you love, that you always sort of, your comfort food that you go back to?
I grew up in the Soviet Union, so I came here from Georgia when I was 6. And so my cuisine when I was a kid was very much sort of Soviet Union, Eastern European, borscht, zrazy, you know, stuff that you'll get from Eastern, you know, from European flavor, you know, those delis on Balaclava Road. Yeah, that style. Glicks, you know, the Glicks Bay Marie. I grew up on that sort of stuff. So for me, that's still definitely soul food. You cannot go past chicken soup with matzo balls. I love that I've been able to introduce people to that. You know, I get emails from the most Yorkshire people saying, I made your matzo ball soup. Or they'll say, you know, what else could I use if I can't find matzo in Albury? How cool is that, right? I love that I can bring Jewish food to a wider audience and make it cool and make it accessible. And there's such a soulfulness to our food anyway. When I was writing in Praise of Veg, actually, there were some recipes in it where I realized that some of the things that we take for granted, like harissa, for example, you know, that was a paste that was brought over, you know, by Tunisian Jews to the, you know, to the rest of the world, I suppose. And the same goes, like, you know, I've got a dish in Praise of Veg called zrazy with like a harissa paste satsibella. So it's like a real melting pot of everything. But zrazy, which are kind of like these potato stuffed rissoles, I suppose. They can be stuffed with meat or stuffed with mushrooms, like the ones in the book. And that is a Lithuanian Jewish dish. So, you know, we've done a lot of traveling in our time, and we've done a lot of fleeing from place to place. And when we flee, we take the food with us and we bring it to our new place. And I think we've kind of done that as well, you know, as a family, being Georgian as well. So my family came from Georgia, but originally were Russian, Ukrainian, you know, Latvian to Georgia to survive the Holocaust, and then to come over to Australia and find a whole new culture to try and assimilate into, but then like figure out what identity looks like. It's a real, you know, those razi are probably a really good example, because it's kind of like a mushroom duck cell in the middle, as raza in the shape of it, and satsibella, which is like a traditional Georgian salsa with the Tunisian harissa mixed in for a bit of spice. I don't think you can find a more kind of melting pot me dish in the book.
Wow, it sounds amazing.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
gonna
cool.
try it.
Thanks.
Is that your go-to dish? Do you have a go-to dish?
No way. They actually, when I was pregnant, was when I really went back to those sorts of foods. Probably because I was like dashing out of the house and I needed like hand food, but also because studies have shown that you really go back to the food that your mother ate, you know, when you were still incubating. So you definitely go back to your childhood foods. I think things like catlete, which are rissoles again on black bread with just some sauce, something like that I know is always going to be in mum's fridge that I can just bring out, whack on, cook. Borscht, always can't stress borscht enough. My borscht recipe is in the big issue this month. And I could, share the story of mum's borscht. You're not a big fan? Okay, no, you need to try my borscht. There are so many different borschts. Like everyone's got a different borscht. In fact, my borscht recipe was also in the Jewish News, and I was at the Avenue bookshop signing books, and a lady, I want to say her name was Nicole. She was at the front of the shop looking at my book suspiciously. And then she saw me signing and she said, I saw you in the Jewish News. You put cauliflower in your borscht. And then she said, and no potatoes. And then, get this. And I'm like, yeah, borscht. And then I speak to mum and she's like, yeah, well, congratulations, you're, in the Jewish News. But you didn't put potatoes in your borscht. So, I think that's our barometer dish, isn't it? Everyone's got their little litmus.
So how did you get over that crime? I mean, how did you admit I mean, honestly.
We just don't talk about it.
You don't talk about it. Fair enough. So let me slightly change the direction of the discussion. I want to know more about how to maximize. People are really trying to maximize their social media presence. You've got a great social media presence. Now I'm hearing that you do it all yourself. So what tips do you have around that? What advice do you have? Guidance, direction, inspiration?
Yep. Understand that each social media platform has a different audience and that there's a different purpose for you to be on each of those platforms. There was a meme going around, a little while ago where people were like, me on Facebook, me on LinkedIn, me on, you definitely do need to think about what information you need to convey to each one of those audiences. I think that LinkedIn is super untapped. Facebook and Instagram hide so much of your content. So you can try and scream from the rooftops when you've got something great to share, but they'll just bury it unless you boost it. So I treat Instagram as a way to connect with my existing audience because I've got quite a few followers on there. But what I've found is that I'm much more able to connect with them on my stories. And then my feed is just kind of pretty ad hoc and not very regular. Whereas Twitter, because you can amplify each other's messages, and particularly when you build up a bit of a community and everyone kind of shares each other's stuff, that's really good to do. So find like-minded people on Twitter. And if you've got something unique to say or share, then Twitter's really fantastic. Professionally, I'm really getting into LinkedIn. I think there's a lot of value to LinkedIn. I think particularly for connecting with people internationally, I'm working with an Israeli tech company at the moment that I definitely wouldn't have connected with if it weren't for LinkedIn. There's just a lot of ops there that you wouldn't otherwise get. Just remember that I find that LinkedIn can be a little bit dry. I think of LinkedIn, the way that I communicate to that audience is it's boomers. So it's an older crowd, but they're the ones with potentially the coin to invest in your dreams. So do take it seriously. Facebook really is just for my family and friends. I don't know what to do with Facebook. So, just treat it as a bit of every now and then, check in to see who's had a baby, who's gotten married, who's had their fourth baby, etc. And so, but having said that, because that sounds very schizophrenic, is she putting on different tones and different personas and all, that sounds really exhausting. It's not. All I have to think is I've got 4 specific people in mind when I talk to each of those platforms. And I ask myself, what does want to know about this situation that just happened to me? And then what does want to know? So, it might be funny on Instagram, or it might be a bit more serious and a bit more self-aggrandizing on LinkedIn, because you can get away with that on LinkedIn, right? So you can always repurpose content. TikTok, I mean, TikTok, wow. If you look at someone like Daniel Aronov, he is smashing TikTok, and that is thanks to, the content creation. If you can find a content creator that you can collaborate with, and if you find that that's something that's valuable for your business, then certainly I would seek it out. But just think about who it is that you want to talk to. So if you don't want to talk to TikTok age group demo kind of people, don't waste your time. You've only got a finite amount of bandwidth to deal with the socials. So maybe prioritize a couple and stick your priorities there. So what is your business? Who are your core audiences? And who do you want to reach? Start small, and then you can build up.
I like it. I'm taking notes of you as you're talking, okay?
Okay.
LinkedIn, boom. So who is your target? That's interesting. We won't get into that. Oh, Alice, you want to go on?
Look, I've got very, razor sharp. I do a lot of stuff. I've got a great, I say that I do my own social media, but I've got a great kind of team that I work with that we check in every week in terms of, particularly at the moment, we're really being very assertive with the campaign from Praise of Veg. So we're looking at our demos. I didn't realize, because I do spend so much time with my audience, I didn't realize how clear a picture I'd developed of each of them, because I talk to them. So I could name them. I've got specific names for each of them. So, I think about LinkedIn people as potential, decision makers, key stakeholders, and, trigger pullers, I suppose, from corporate and from government and industry. So people that are watching what I'm doing and wondering how they can tap into that engaged audience, into the consumer insights that we've developed. The Phenomenon project, that was a, over $2 million project, which a third of that budget went to consumer insights and market insights, focus groups. So I'm very privy and very excited to have a lot of kind of those real crystal clear ideas of where food's headed. And I'm able to think of ways to integrate that into my decisions. So that's LinkedIn. Then, Facebook, again, Facebook's a much older crowd, actually, maybe even older than LinkedIn. So grandmas are on Facebook. So, but hey, grandmas buy presents. So if you've got something to sell for people, younger people, think about pitching it in a kinder way, like you're wearing a cardigan. Twitter, the Twitter audience is the media. I think it's probably makes up about 5% of Australians are on Twitter, and most of them are just talking to each other within the media sphere. So that's kind of where you want to amplify your work. If you are a creative, if you are launching a book or podcast, or looking to share an article that you've written, Twitter is really great. LinkedIn's really great too. And then Instagram, my audience on that, even though I've got the algorithm, I've got my kind of insights and my granular indicators of what the age groups are and my demos, I actually think that Instagram's reach has changed, and there is an older crowd on there too. When I think about who I'm talking to on Instagram now, I'm thinking about a global audience, because that's what's happened with COVID, is that actually now we have people from the UK looking at us a lot more. So my book launched in the UK on Thursday. So I'm doing Instagram lives at 10 p.m. our time, because that reaches a much bigger audience in the UK. It's crazy, and we've kind of got to reframe some of our expectations and assumptions that we make about social media, and not worry so much about people liking us, and think more about how can I build an engaged community of people who want to know what it is that I have to say and want to support me on my path, whatever that path is.
Wow, that's amazing. So what are the new food trends that you've picked up?
Well, one of them, we're staring at it, is plant-based eating. I can't stress enough how much of a growth market that is. You've seen it. I've got some friends who have created a plant-based cheese on cauliflower. They're in New York at the moment, but they are absolutely killing it. And, funnily, like if you think about Parv, like we've been at the forefront of figuring out ways to create plant-based dairy alternatives and meat alternatives for a really long time. So that's a real growth area that you might like to focus on if the food manufacturing industry is something that interests you. In terms of the food media, I think the trends are moving more and more towards being authentic. I noticed Shari Cohen tuned in. She's someone that I'm watching keenly on Facebook. She's writing a book at the moment, and you know, the authenticity that comes through, the micro influence that comes through now. I think it doesn't actually matter how many followers you have, it's actually how engaged your followers are and how keen they are to support you in your project. So don't worry about building this false kind of inflated number of followers. Just worry about engaging with the followers that you've already got, you know. So in terms of other food trends, one thing that I read was the silver tsunami. You know, don't forget about older people. And that's actually something that I've found as well with News Breakfast is I get emails. I got an email this afternoon from a lady who's 80. And she says, I'm 80 years young and I love cooking your recipes. These are the people that would normally be on cruises at the end of the year, or they would be traveling, whereas now they are here and they've got a lot more disposable income. So again, if you are a caterer, you know, think about how maybe you might like to target them, thinking about, you know, and what I mean by that is, do they want to hold a garden party? Do they want to create an experience where they feel like they are on a cruise, but they haven't left their house? You know, there are lots of things that you can do. Again, just kind of, you've got to be thinking laterally about some of these opportunities. And the digitization of food. So, you know, apps, platforms, creating direct to consumer opportunities. So, you know, the tech company that I'm collaborating with, you know, they're working with AI and creating, you know, really shoppable content, which is really exciting because it means that the consumer and the retailer can be even kind of create a closer relationship and interrelationship that's supportive and fruitful for both parties. So that's really exciting as well. I'm really looking forward to the future of food, but you know, let's face it, the future is here.
It is here, and we've only got time for literally probably 2 more questions. I want to ask you one heavy question, and then we'll go to a few or to the last question. But just,
great.
I've heard a lot of people say that a chef is a man's world. Do you know? And what do you think of that? Do you think there is equality or lack of equality? Do you think there's enough young ladies going into the culinary world? And do you think there's something that could be done, should be done more? Is it true? Is it not true? What's your experience?
The traditional world of chefing was very much dominated by men because things were, you know, pots were extremely heavy and the perception was that women couldn't carry them, or, you know, the machinery was difficult to operate with our dainty little lady hands. First of all, technology has changed all of that. Second of all, there are a lot of opportunities within the food industry that don't necessarily mean that you have to be stuck behind a hot plate for 18 hours of your day. So if you are a woman who is passionate about connecting with people through food, then find what it is that you truly love to do within the industry and pursue that. And if it is being a chef, you know, I've got a young mentee, I suppose, that I work with, and she said to me, she thought she wanted to be a food journalist, and then she said to me a couple of weeks ago, I think I want to be a chef. And I was so excited for her because there was this moment of clarity. So I connected her with another chef in Melbourne, and she's now an apprentice, like a proper apprentice, and loves it. And I think she's crazy. It's not my jam, but she absolutely adores it. And I know that women chefs in kitchens who are women find that question challenging at times. My favorite answer from in inverted commas, female chef. So best female chef of the year 2017 was Ana Roš, who's the chef of Hita Franco in Slovenia. She's got a Chef's Table episode on Netflix. She's an incredible thinker. She was actually studying to be a diplomat before she went into cooking. And she got up to tell her speech, and you know, it's a really challenging kind of award to win, right? Best female chef. Like, why have they even created that category? But she said, you know what? It is harder being a woman. I've got kids. When I'm at home, I feel like I should be in the kitchen. When I'm in the kitchen, I feel like I should be at home. I'm never enough, and yet I push through and I work really freaking hard. And yeah, you know, you do need to work really freaking hard, particularly to push through the glass ceiling. But that goes for any industry. I think that all of those perceptions and all of those preconceived ideas of what it is that we're capable of as women, they're being shattered left, right, and center. And you know, to be honest, I think those patriarchal kind of narratives that follow industries that are traditionally male dominated. If you think about a woman in the home, we just expect women to be naturally good cooks, right? And yet why doesn't that extend to kitchens? There is an intuition, there's a deep-seated nurturing spirit, I think, in a lot of women that is imbued within us as children, because we tend to spend a lot of time in the kitchen with our parents. Chances are more so than little boys. Just making a presumption there. Maybe not. I would love if I would prove wrong. I love it, Moishi. That's fantastic. That's great. That's so good. But you know, that what you experienced is something that you can then take into the professional kitchen, and you can, if you cook from that place, then your food will taste good, much more so than if you cook from a place of trying to be a good business person or trying to prove anyone anything. Does that answer your question in a really weird way?
It does. Great. No, it's great. And it is, we are basically, I just want to ask you one final question. Just quick short, what's next for Alice?
TV is next for Alice. I've got some products that I'm developing. I'm already thinking about my next book. I'm pretty sure that we sold out of books almost entirely from Target today, but you know, yeah, I know, it's just like, it's crazy. I'm waiting to find out if we get a reprint, or not if we get a reprint, but when we need to reprint, which is super exciting. So obviously thinking about what's next in terms of writing. I would really like to find some more balance within spending more time with my family and my friends. I'm really excited to reconnect with them now that we can spend time with each other in person. But what's next for me more broadly, I think, is I feel like I'm in flow, which is a really powerful and exciting place to be. So, you know, watch this space.
Love it. Alice, really, thank you. And I just want to tell you one thing, that the best cook over here is my dear wife, Dina. Obviously, you know, I'm not talking about commercial, professional. I'm talking about real. We look forward, Dina and I look forward to welcoming you all at a Shabbat dinner when we're allowed to have a bit more than 2 guests. But thank you so much, Alice, for joining us, really giving up your time, sharing your wisdom, sharing your story, sharing the energy that you just give across with your passion and love for what you do. And I think that's really wonderful that you're so excited about it. And good luck with your new book. Good luck with your TV. Every time I see you anywhere, I get excited when I see you, whether it's in the newspaper, on TV. I'm like, yeah, there goes Alice. So good luck and thank you. Thank you to Brian. Thank you all. See you all next week. We've got Alan Mills giving us another masterclass. Stay tuned, get involved, get engaged, and get inspired. Thank you all so much. And Alice, thank you. Take care, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. All the best.
See you. Bye.
Bye.